Welcome to Paul's Toolbox. Today we're going to cover repairing and replacing our weather stripping on the bottom of the door. On the previous two videos I covered replacing the framing and the trim with the rubber stripping around it. That way it seals the outside. Well, now I want to seal the bottom of this door and replace it. This is old stuff, so it's going to take a little bit to get it out, but it's nothing we can't handle. Let's get to it. This weather stripping is pretty bad off. It's really hardened up in there, and it would be almost impossible to get it out of there sliding it, because this has bent over the years. You could take a screwdriver and bend it out if this was pliable still, but there's no way to get this out without taking this track off. And that's the way I like to do it anyway, because I like to take this track, get it on the ground, clean it, and then put my new rubber on there and then put it up. It's a lot easier than trying to fight in the corners over here, sliding this out and then not having much room to work with. When I first looked at the door, I figured I'd have a little problem with this bolt right here, and I'm going to show you in a second. I use this PB spray. This stuff is really good for breaking bolts loose and nuts loose, anything with rust on it. Like I said, these are rusted, but I sprayed that PB blaster on it, and it's going to come loose pretty easily. My next step is to lower this door so I can get to those nuts back there, and I'm going to spray some PB blaster on that as well. These screws are in pretty bad shape. I'm going to replace them, but right now I just want to knock a little bit of that off of it, because you can see it's kind of eating through the screw right there. I'll take my spray lubricant. Let that sit for a few minutes. These nuts and bolts are really bad off. If I get them off, I'm going to have to replace them anyway. Actually coming off better than I thought it would. I'll get my vice grips ready, clamp them on the other side. Right now we have a bolt that's too rusted in there all the way through. Even with my PB blaster, I can't get it to come loose. One of them just snapped as soon as it started turning. That means the bolt is completely rusted almost all the way through to the stem. So this one is so badly off that I'm afraid I'm going to mess up my door trying to loosen it up. So I'll put vice grips on the back end once I got it loose enough, and I'm going to use my sweet little saw here to cut this bolt and take it out. I don't want to put my blade right next to my door and scar it up, so I'm going to put it on this side, right there. And I'm going to have to keep it tight because it's going to vibrate all over if I don't. My Milwaukee 12 volt saved me again. No harm done. That snag was nothing. Now it's time to go ahead and take the rest of these bolts out and get this track off. That cable is up top and it's connecting to this right here, this frame. So what I'm going to do in order to get this out is just unbolt this one. You'll loosen this up a tad bit. Do not touch these. You don't want this to come loose because all that tension is held on this bracket right here on both sides. They have two pulleys with heavy springs that will snap back and cut your fingers off if you're not careful. So you want to take and loosen this bottom bolt and just barely loosen this, and you can slide this out. That's all we're going to do. This is not a super difficult job, and it's not dangerous if you're careful with it. I just want to make sure that you're on the side of caution when you get next to the pulleys over there. That's all. I'm just going to back it off a little bit. Not all the way, just a little bit. This one I'm going to take out all the way. Now that this bolt's loose right here, now that I have this loose and this one's off, I can slide this bottom track down. You see how it moved? Now we're going to go down the line and unscrew the rest of them. Now I'll just loosen this one up again, and I'll take this one off. Remember, I don't even touch the top one. This is pretty nasty right now, but what I'm going to do is cut it in sections, get this nasty part off the ends so I can try to slide it out of the track. I'll also use some of that PB Blaster and spray in there to lubricate it so it makes it slippery. This is going to be the hardest part, getting these little nasty pieces out of here. Once I get that out, it's going to be a breeze, I think. And that's not going to take much. I'm just trying to get this piece out. Once I get this disconnected from there, I think it'll work. I'm going to put my vice grips on it, clamp it down tight, and pull. Boy, these things come in handy for a lot of jobs too. See, once I get that out, you can start pulling it. I step on the rail so I can keep it down tight. Yeah, it's going to come out. I'm going to take some PB Blaster, spray it in the tracks, and let it just run down right in the two grooves. And then I'll let it sit for about 2 minutes or so on an angle, let it run down. If it doesn't get all the way down to the bottom of it, that's okay. If it gets in here somewhat, it's going to help me slide it. Then I can move it back and forth and just pull it right off. I'll let it sit for a couple of minutes. That's all it takes. I'm going to put my vice grips on the end and get a good grip. Slide it up some. All she wrote. Now all I have to do is get my broom and some dishwashing detergent and clean this off. If I really want to clean it well on a couple spots that are nasty, I get my SOS pad on it. I had to order the rubber for this, so it took a little time. I got it in. It took about 1.5 weeks. My son helped me, and we worked on it for about 45 minutes before we got it in. Because the rubber that I had ordered didn't fit the track exactly. I have 1/4-inch slots on my track. All the local places have 3/8 inch. That's the new tracks. Those slide in pretty easily. Normally when I put these tracks together, I'll hold it up and get dishwashing soap and run down the tracks so it's nice and slippery. Put a little bit of water in it, it gets really slippery. Then I'll take it and set it upside down, slip the track in, and eyeball it, and it can slide. As long as I hold this part and cup it like this, you can slide it down. Well, this one was so tight, I widened out the tracks, I put soap in it, I tugged on it. I mean, we pulled and pulled and pulled on this thing before we got it down there. So, it's just a good thing that I try to teach my kids respect, and I don't go blurting out curse words because I was thinking them. Well, it's all said and done. It's put together. I would have shown you how it's done, but I'll just tell you instead. What we did was we took it upside down. We turned this and cupped it and slid it in the tracks. Like I said, this rubber is not actually 1/4 inch because it did not fit in this track. It was a little bit wider than the tracks. We really had to stuff it in there, and I had to take the two sides right here with my hands and pull it. I wedged it up against my fence on this end. My son eyeballed it from that end, and we pulled it about maybe 3 or 4 inches at a time till we got that 16 feet in there. Now, when you're finished doing that and it's all said and done, you want to leave it a little bit long, and you want to roll this back in case this rubber shrinks. You don't want to have it too short and you have a gap down there. I'm going to roll it. Take this and roll it back and tuck it in. That way I have a little bit of extra length in case it shrinks. If this shrinks, I still have enough. I can pull it back out and get it to the right length. And that's all you do for this. Now we're ready to put it in. I'm going to put the track in the same way I took it out. Keeping these bolts in place. Remember that. These are very, very important. Do not take these off. I will loosen one of them up a little bit so I can slide the track in there. This one right here, I'm just going to back off a little bit. Make sure this one's tight so it doesn't move. Then it gives a little gap at the bottom. I can slide the track up there. Here's my track. I'm going to take it and just slip it up into place right here and get it close to where I need it. It's not going to go perfect yet, Now I'm going to take my 5/16 nut driver and I'm going to line this up and put my screws in here. So I just pick it up, get it in position. Oh man, killing me, baby. Get my middle one in. Like I said, this is a little bit loose here, but this is real tight. I want to make sure this doesn't come off because the cable's hooked up to that. I'm going to take and slip this underneath. I'll pull it down a little bit and slip it underneath that track. Let it slide up there. Now, my hole is not lining up perfect, so I have to loosen this up a little bit just so I can work it. Perfect. Got it. I'm using my Mega Pro multi screwdriver. This is the HVAC one. It has a point on here that allows me to get into these little spots and wedge it over. So I can get to a hard to reach spot by moving that hole over. Instead of trying to find a tiny screwdriver, this is a lot stronger. Has that hefty point on it. So I'll line that up and get my next bolt in. Now I'll put stainless steel carriage bolts back in here. They're 2 1/4 inches long and they're a 1/4 inch shaft on it to fit in here. And snug this up. It goes through here and through the track. And that's it. Changing the framing and the trim on this took no time at all. Even the bottom track is very simple to do if you have the right seal to go in it. So don't be intimidated by this because I had trouble with it. Mine is outdated. I couldn't find the track to match it. The new tracks are a lot easier. They're supposed to be 3/8 of an inch. Right here, this T, and this is 1/4 inch. Mine's supposed to be 1/4 inch. This is a little bit bigger. I measured it. It's a tiny bit bigger than my track. So I had trouble with it. But it's not a big deal. It's done. It's behind me. I'll see you on the next project. And don't forget to subscribe.